Hello, I'm Christopher from Learnry, and in this video we are going to learn the syntax or the grammar of the Python programming language. So by the end of this video you will know everything that has to do with how to write the Python programming language syntax. Now let's start off with how to execute Python syntax. So the Python programming language syntax can be executed or run by writing directly in the command line interface, or by creating a Python file using the .py file extension and running the file in the command line interface. So now let's talk about Python indentation. Indentation refers to the spaces at the beginning of a code line. In other programming languages like JavaScript, the indentation in code is for readability only. But in Python, code indentation is used to indicate that a piece of code belongs to a certain block or group of code. Now, Python will give you an error if you skip indentation. So if you have a block of code and the inner code in that particular block is not indented, then Python is going to throw an error, because then the Python interpreter wouldn't know which particular code belongs to that block and which one doesn't. Now, when indenting code, the number of spaces that you use for the indentation is up to you as a programmer, but the space you use has to be at least 1. Also, you have to use the same number of spaces in the same block of code, otherwise Python will again give you an error. Okay guys, so I have my command prompt interface open on the left hand side of my computer screen, and on the right hand side I have Visual Studio Code Editor opened. Now, one thing I want to say is that Python is pre-installed on almost all the versions of the Linux operating system. But when it comes to Windows, we have to install Python on our systems ourselves. So we have a video on how to install Python on a Windows-based operating system, and I will include a link to that video in the description section below. Now, before we start off with anything at all, I want us to check to see whether we have Python installed on our computer, and if we have it installed, we also want to be able to tell the version of Python so that we don't end up getting errors when we start writing our Python code. Now, to check if you have Python installed on your computer or not, we just basically type the command Python, and we are going to pass it the argument of -V. And when we hit enter, if only we have Python installed, the command prompt interface is going to return the version of Python that is installed on our system. So as we can see, we have Python 3.7.6 installed on my computer. So you can also try that with your computer to see whether you have Python installed or not. So now that we are sure we have Python 3.7 installed on our computer, let's go ahead and we are going to take a look at how to execute Python code. So basically there are two ways in which we can run Python code. The first way is by directly running the code in the command prompt interface. And the second method is by writing all our Python code in a file and then running the file instead. So let's start off with the first way of running Python code. Now, if we want to run Python code directly in the command prompt interface, we have to first of all enter into something we call the Python shell. Now, in order for you to be able to enter the Python shell, first of all, you have to have Python installed on your computer. And secondly, you have to type the command Python without any argument, then you hit enter. So you can see we have some 3 greater than signs here. That tells us that we are now in the Python shell. We are no longer in the normal command prompt interface. So now that we are in the Python shell, we can basically type any valid Python code inside this command prompt interface. So for example, let's say we are going to do a print statement. So let's say print, and we are going to print the string hello world. So let's have our exclamation sign, our closing quotation mark, and then our closing parenthesis. Let's hit enter. Now we see that Python has returned the string hello world. So this Python code is working perfectly fine. Now let's make Python do a little bit of math for us. So we are going to do print, and we are going to pass 2 plus 3. Let's close our parenthesis, and we are going to hit enter, and now we see we get 5. So all this Python code I am typing, I am doing it directly in the command prompt interface, and you can see that we didn't get any errors at all. So this is one way of executing Python code. Now the other way around is by writing all this code we just saw inside a Python file and then executing the Python file to get the result that you want. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code Editor. Now I have gone ahead and created a folder on my desktop with the name of Python tutorials. So inside this Python tutorials folder, we are going to create a new file. So let's click on this icon here, and we are going to call the file test. Now every Python file has to have the extension of .py. That is the only way the computer is able to identify Python files. So we're going to say .py, and we're going to hit enter. So now our Python file has been created inside the folder on our desktop. So inside this particular file, we can basically write any valid Python code. So let's start off by doing a print statement. So I'm going to say print, and again we are going to have our hello world and then our exclamation sign, and let's save this file. Now that we have the file ready, how do we run this particular file? So in order for us to run this file, first of all, we have to exit out of the Python shell. Now the way we do that is by typing the command exit, and we are going to add an opening and closing parenthesis. Then now let's hit enter, and you can now see that we are out of the Python shell. So let's clear our screen by doing CLS. And so the way we run this file is, we first of all have to be able to navigate to the folder on the desktop. So I'm going to say cd desktop, and I'm going to hit enter. So now we are on the computer's desktop. So now we are going to navigate to the Python tutorials folder that has been created on the desktop already. So I'm going to say cd, then we're going to have Python tutorials, and we're going to hit enter. So now we are in that folder. Now we can basically run the Python file by doing Python. So we are going to write the command Python, and then the argument we are going to pass to this command is the name and also the file extension of the file we are interested in running. So I'm going to say test.py, and when I hit enter, now you can see that we gave a print statement in the file, and that has been executed by the Python interpreter. So we can see we have hello world here. So now let's take out this string of text, and we are going to do a little bit of math. So let's have 2 plus maybe say 10, and we are going to save this file. Then let's go back into our command prompt interface, and we are going to type Python again, and the argument we are going to pass is the name of the file we want to run and also the extension. So let's hit enter, and now we can see that Python returned 12. So basically that is the two ways in which you can run Python code. Either you use the command prompt interface, or you can use a Python file and then run the file after you are done writing your code. Now the next thing we are going to talk about is Python indentation. So in other programming languages, as I said before, we use indentation for the purposes of beautifying your code. But in Python it's different. So in Python, we have to use indentation because indentation is the only way the Python interpreter is able to tell if a particular line of code belongs to a block of code or not. So I'm going to take out this print statement here, and let's have an if block. So if, let's say 2 is less than 3, then we are going to run a piece of code. Now I know you don't understand what an if statement does. Just bear with me. I just want you to understand why we indent code. So this is an if statement. Normally an if statement is what we call an if block, because anytime we use an if statement, it means that we are basically going to have a condition, and inside the if statement we are going to have a bunch of code which would either run or not run depending on whether the condition that we specified is met or not. So for example, what we are saying is that if the condition inside this opening and closing parenthesis is met, then whatever code we have inside the if block should run. But if the condition we have in the parenthesis is not met, then whatever code we have in the if block should not run. Now, how is the Python interpreter able to tell if a particular code is inside the if block or not? We use indentation to tell the interpreter. So for example, if I come here and I write print and I say hello, and I just leave it like this and save this. Now we all know that of course 2 is less than 3. So this condition is going to evaluate to a true value, meaning that the Python interpreter is going to run whatever piece of code that is in the if block. So let's go inside our command prompt interface, and we are going to run this file by saying Python. Then we are going to specify the name test.py. We hit enter. Now you can see we got hello. So the interpreter simply used these spaces that I created here, which is the indentation I'm talking about, to be able to know that this print statement is inside the if block. Now let's take out all these spaces, meaning now we no longer have indentation. When we save this file and go back to our command prompt interface and we type Python, and then we specify the name of the file and the file extension, and we hit enter. Now you can see we got an error because the Python interpreter expected us to supply a piece of code for when the if statement evaluates to a true value. Unfortunately, it looks as if we didn't specify any piece of code, and that is because we didn't indent this line of code here. But even if I add a single space here and I save this file again, and we go back to our command prompt interface, and I'm going to press on the up arrow key once to get back the command I just finished running, and now I can hit enter. Now you can see we didn't get an error. That is because of the indentation. So I hope you have learned a thing or two about how to run Python code and also how to indent Python code. So the question of the day is, why is code indentation so important in the Python programming language? You can leave your answer in the comment section below. Okay, so if you are new to this channel and found this video helpful, then click on the subscribe button and the bell notification icon below so that you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson.